On 4th July 1990, veteran politicians Ken Matiba and Charles Rubia were arrested and thrown into detention. Unfortunately, their health deteriorated and had to be released on medical grounds barely after 9 months. But for Ken Matiba, the situation has since moved from bad to worse, and perhaps now the worst, a condition he continues to battle for 28 years now. This is Matiba's catastrophic detention, the untold story. My name is Duncan Haimba. Kenneth Stanley Njindo Matiba is a veteran politician who, alongside Charles Rubia, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, Pius Masinde Muliro, Martin Shikuku, Ahmed Bamariz and others, teamed up with younger comrades dubbed the Young Turks in leading what is popularly known as Kenya's second liberation struggle in the 90s that gave birth to the current multi-party democracy in the country. The Young Turks then were Raila Odinga, James Orengo, Paul Mwite, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, Kiraitu Murongi, Gitobu Imanyara, Dr. Muhisa Kitui, among others. However, this came at a price, and as fate would have it, Kenneth Matiba is among those who paid the heaviest price. While several people lost their lives in the struggle, his incarceration affected his life permanently. His health deteriorated while in detention and changing his life forever, physically, politically, socially, and even economically. Dr. Dan Gikonyo, a cardiologist, is his personal doctor for over 27 years now.
Ken Matiba was left in detention. I never had a chance or the privilege of seeing Ken Matiba in detention. But one day, the family of Ken Matiba, the daughter Susan and mother, came to me and they told me, we have learned that our father, Ken Matiba, is in this hospital.
Dr. Gikonyo and perhaps other physicians at the Nairobi hospital at the time were unaware that Kenneth Matiba had been clandestinely admitted at the facility. It was a state top secret, and it remained so for several days. However, some members of Matiba's got wind of it.
So the family of Ken Matiba asked me whether I would like to see their father, their husband. I said, yes, I will. So we were allowed to go into his ward with a neurologist, Dr. Sam Winzi, to see him. And we found he was already in the hospital in the North Wing. He was already admitted under a fake name. He was admitted under the name of Mr. Mushiri. I remember quite well. After he stopped being Mushiri and now became Ken Matiba in reality, I was allowed to see him with Dr. Mwins, the neurologist.
Charles Njuki is a retired prison warden at the Committee Maximum Prison. Njuki is the one who made it public that Kenneth Matiba was unwell. He says this was barely a week after he had been transferred to committee following a week-long appearance before a tribunal at Mombasa's Shimolatewa Maximum Prison.
Nilifungua tu, akaniambia mimi ni mgonjwa. Nikamwambia wewe mgonjwa? Yes, sawa. Okay, nikamwambia wacha taona litafanya namna gani. Nikaenda pale duty office. Nikamwambia duty officer, ofisa nje akija apiwe nataka kumuona. Bahati mzuri tulikuwa naingia kama kitu kama saa moja, kitu kama saa 3, ofisa nje akaja. Kuja nikamwambia Matiba ni mgonjwa. Na ameniambia hivi ni mgonjwa. Soon hata sikuvui kama aliingia kumuona. Tulikuwa nafanya na system ni lazima kama mtu natoka lazima polisi watalete security. kidogo wakaenda, kitu kama saa 4 daktari wakaja na polisi wakaja.
Njuki says it was not until prison authorities discovered that Matiba's life was in danger that things moved with speed.
Kutoka saa 7 kidogo tu ikawa Matiba apelekwe Nairobi hospital. The following day tukawa tuna mchunga akiwa huko Nairobi hospital. Wakati hiyo ndio kulikuwa lazima security ya polisi iwe pale na sisi tuwe pale.
So he had been brought in as a fake on a fake name because they had realized he was deteriorating in detention. Unlike the case of Charles Rubia, where the injury occurred much after he was detained, released, Ken Matiba's injury occurred in detention.
Matiba was arrested alongside his counterpart Charles Wanyoike Rubia on 4th July 1990 for having planned a major and the first ever Sabasaba rally that would have taken place 3 days later on 7th July. The two had cancelled the rally after failing to get a license, but that still landed them in detention for 9 months.
The report of Dr. Gikonyo, Dr. Muita, who was a government doctor, and a Reno expert called, he's a mayor also, called Dr. Mogera. 3 of them, medical doctors, wrote a report about my illness. And if I had my files in the office, I could show you. One thing they said, Mr. Rubia has got terrible illness. He must be taken to hospital immediately.
Rubia lost his voice while in detention. It was attributed to extreme conditions in prison.
Sudden change in lifestyle, must have affected my system. And if you ask doctors, they'll tell you, thyroid gland of mine went haywire.
At the Nairobi hospital, a standoff ensued between government machinery and the Matiba family.
And when I saw him, I told the family I've seen him, but by then he was still not released. So they said, now we must go public to have him released. I told Akina Susan, listen, let's go slow. Let me write a medical report of what I've seen today. Let him give it to the state officials. Let them present it to President Moi or whoever is in charge. If then they refuse to release him, then we can go public and try to get public support. And we wrote that report on a Sunday morning. I called Mr. Kinoti, who was in charge of detainees, and I told him about a medical report. He took it to whoever, and I believe he must have taken it to the head of the state. And it's on that Sunday morning that Ken Matiba was released.
On Sunday, 26th May 1991, he was released from detention, but was a changed man, no longer the familiar, revered and firebrand politician. His health had failed. It was discovered that he had suffered a stroke.
There was urgency now to get Ken Matiba into proper medical care. And in those days, in 1990s, there was not enough care for that type of thing in this country. Neurosurgery was in its primordial stages. They didn't have any neurosurgeons. We didn't have the equipment. So we agreed that Ken Matiba has to go to London. By this time, I was quite conversant with London. I'd been there with Charles Rubia, I'd been other clients. I knew exactly whom to call. So within a very short time, we were able to arrange for Ken Matiba to go from Nairobi now to London, now on his own. But by this time, the damage had been done. If you have a bleed in the brain, there is medical protocol that says what medicines you should take to reduce the pressures, how to manage your blood pressure, how to manage other parameters to stop you from bleeding. Those had not happened for a week. His blood pressure was very fluctuant, and I saw the notes from prison. The pressure was uncontrolled. So you have a bleed in the brain, and your blood pressure is not controlled, you even bleed more.
It was now a race against time trying to save his life. Ken Matiba was quickly flown to London for specialized treatment.
The surgeons there said this surgery is high risk. We can't guarantee you that trying to repair what there is here, we can actually be able to completely close this area of weakness, the aneurysm. So you can choose. You go with it, you get complications, you stay with it, got complications. But as we are debating all these, unfortunately, Ken got a second stroke when we were still in London, and we had to do emergency surgery. That's the time that we really had more problems.
Doctors in London worked round the clock, but for his personal doctor, every minute was a nightmare. Back home in Kenya, all eyes were focused on London.
Ken had the surgery, and one night, Ken almost died. Everything was terrible in the hospital he was in. He was on a ventilator, he was doing badly, and it's about 1 o'clock at night, and Betty, my wife, calls me, said, listen, things are very bad here. You must come. So as we discussed, I say, okay, let me talk to one of the doctors. We talked to one of the doctors. They were very reluctant, but we said he must be moved to a better hospital, to a bigger hospital than where he was that time, which they agreed. And Betty saw him being moved over, and I got to the plane. I'm back to London. We were there together with my wife and Ken Matiba and his wife. And it was a very difficult time for Ken Matiba's family, because now he was in coma, he was on a machine, he was paralyzed, and we never saw any hope of him coming out of that. But I stayed, after a while my wife came back, I stayed there with him. And Ken Matiba is a fighter. Even with all those happenings, he fought back, and he recovered and came out of the ICU.
This is KTN News.